Good morning. This is Inside the FLX from FingerLakes1.com. I'm your host, Ted Baker, and I'm joined appropriately by two of my old friends from the radio side from Seneca County Cooperative Extension. Ave Bauder and Judy Wright are here. Good morning.
Good morning, Ted.
And thank you so much. I got a beautiful gift basket upon my departure from the radio scene with all kinds of great Finger Lakes products, and thank you very much. That meant a lot to me.
Our pleasure. That's the thing to do. Everything that you've done for us over the years, we just wanted to thank you.
So I'm hosting this program now each Tuesday morning at this time, and if I look like a radio guy trying to do video, that's what I am. See the face for radio? Yes. So what we're going to start with, because we had a whole bunch of things we're going to get into, and we'll visit many times over the weeks to come, but let's start with the annual meeting coming up on Monday night. It is a Zoom affair this year, so talk about the importance of that meeting and the business that gets done.
Well, the annual meeting is very important. Every association has to have our annual meeting. The membership of the association is made up of the members. Anybody who participates ultimately in a cooperative extension program is a member of the association. And any Seneca County resident can come to the annual meeting. That's where we have to conduct all of our official business as the organization. So we have to elect new board members. This year we actually have to go over our constitution, revise that, and we do a financial report. We report out on all of the programming over the course of the year, and so that it's critical. And it's critical we get 25 people because otherwise it's not a quorum. And so that's what we'll be doing. We'll be joined actually again this year. I guess the one nice thing, if you can call a virtual meeting versus an in-person meeting nice, is our state director, Dr. Chris Watkins, will be joining us as well, and so we'll be doing that. And so it's very important. People can sign up actually on the website and get the registration link and go from there.
That leads into my next topic, which is adapting during COVID. I've said many times, I think your organization was among the first to really jump on the opportunities of using Zoom and being able to bring in national guests. A lot of the 4-H programs were done remotely. Just talk about how your team adapted so creatively during COVID.
I'm very proud of the team, and Judy is here and was part of that. We met pretty quickly after we shut down and said, what can we do? How can we pivot all of these programs? I think my best example that I was just very proud of how everybody came together is we were faced with a farm to school program with no farm and school. So we couldn't get it. The schools were shut down. They were all virtual. You couldn't do anything. And we said, well, how do we get across? How do we do some of the things that we were going to do and still produce that program, make that connection with local and people eating in their homes? And we had gone to we were going to be doing school gardens. And so that was kind of there with the farm to school people, and Patty Payne, the horticulture person, said, well, Payne Ann they're going to hand out seeds, just in general. And so that went from, well, we could do seeds, and then went, well, why don't we do seed kits, and why don't we send those home to the students' homes, and they can do their own gardens, and then we will produce videos to show them what to do during each step of that process. And so the thing about extension is we adapt, and we're pretty creative, and I've got a pretty creative staff, and so that was just a great example. We handed out 1,000 home to school garden kits. The 4-H group they actually we were a spearhead for a regional program that every day there was a different lesson that was being presented with the materials. Oftentimes the materials could be picked up, or you could have materials that you would have from around the home, and that actually won a national award for its work. So it's a lot of, let's embrace the technology. Embrace it. Don't just sit and say, "Oh, gee, what are we going to do?" It's really like they give you lemons, make lemonade.
Judy's title is Ag Economic Development Specialist. So let's get kind of a state of the state for Seneca County and upstate New York agriculture. Let's start with this harvest season. How has it looked this year?
Things have gone really well. The weather pretty much cooperated. The growing season was fabulous and yields have been really good. So farmers right now are finishing up. Soybeans came off fairly well, yielded well, and grain harvest for corn is now finishing up. So farmers are in pretty good shape. If you drive by some of the bigger farms, you may see a lot of steam coming out, and that's primarily from the grain dryers. They're taking the moisture out of the corn, so it's good for storage. Grapes are always of interest to this area, and they had a interesting season, I guess is what I'll say. I'm not directly involved with that production area, but reading the newsletters from our grape team, a lot of good quality grapes. They were very big, very plump, and they're starting to make some wine with them.
Well, and you've reminded me, we'll get Hans Walter Peterson on here at some point in the future. I call him the Finger Lakes go-to grape guy.
Definitely.
Let's talk about the COVID effect. Are we seeing any disruptions in markets for local farmers, or any supply chain difficulties in getting tractor parts or anything like that you're seeing?
I've not heard too much along those lines. There's some possible concerns down the road with some other types of inputs, primarily around chemicals. I saw some information coming out of the Midwest encouraging farmers to think about how they may handle their weed control for next year, because some of the ingredients that go into some of the main herbicides to control weeds could be limited. And unfortunately, believe it or not, Hurricane Ida, which devastated the southern area of our country this summer, has the potential to impact this as well, because one of the main herbicide manufacturing plants in Louisiana was severely damaged, and I'm not sure whether that's back up online or not. So supply chain issues, there's some potential for that. And farmers want to grow products. They want to be able to market it, and looking for the tools, they'll find a way to make that happen.
All right, Ave, let's go back to the very beginning. I think the first time I ever heard of Cooperative Extension was when I was working in Texas in the early 80s. So where did this idea of colleges lending their expertise to the ag community and teams like yours spreading that knowledge out, how did that get started?
So the whole land grant system is actually a product of one of my favorite presidents, Abraham Lincoln. And so I believe it's 1862, the Morrill Act established land grants, which meant that the federal government gave each state at that time a chunk of land with which to make whatever. Basically, they could sell it, they could do whatever it is that they needed to do with it to then subsidize a land grant university for each state that would emphasize the agricultural arts. It would emphasize all of the things that needed to support anything that would actually ultimately be happening in the state. The interesting thing in terms of, so that's where you end up, Cornell somehow, a private institution, ended up being the land grant for New York. The original agricultural college was going to be in Willard. It had actually been established. There was a building, and then the Civil War hit. And then the Morrill Act came through. Ezra Cornell knew some people in Albany and arranged to be granted the land grant, and so Cornell becomes the land grant institution for New York State. But other people would be more familiar, Penn State, Michigan State, those are the land grants, and each one gets some federal money in order still through other acts that come down through the years for the system that supports, as I said, supports agriculture, supports home nutrition, home economics ultimately, and those are the land grant pieces for the whole state. And so when we connect if there is a program that we need information on that Cornell may not have that support, that may not have a faculty member. Well, Penn State might. And so we can utilize other land grants for those kinds of things.
So now talk a little bit about the structure of Cooperative Extension. You've talked about the different teams you have. Yep. You've got a grape team that focuses on grape growing and wine. You've got a crop team, a dairy team. Yep. So talk about that organization, and then Judy, talk about your specialty a little bit.
So in New York State, we have a unique system. There might be one other state, but even that one isn't quite the same. We are, Judy and I are employees of the Cooperative Extension Association of Seneca County. So we have our own board of directors. Each county, more or less, there's a couple that are combined, but each county in the state has its own cooperative extension. And then, so I report to the board of directors in Seneca County, but I also report to Chris Watkins, who's the state director. And so that gives the ability of each county to look at its specific needs and to then have a program that addresses those needs. So in Seneca County, we actually cover most of what are considered for the missionaries for the state. So we have agriculture, and we'll let Judy talk about that. We have 4-H youth development. We have nutrition. Use my cheat sheet so I don't forget anything. We have home horticulture, which is the Master Gardener program. We have environment and natural resources, and under that comes things like sustainable energy and climate change, recycling education, which we do for the county, and also community and economic development. So those are the major areas. We have, in Seneca County, we have staff that's associated with each one of those for the most part. Some of them fall on the executive director, other duties as assigned. So I kind of pick up the sustainable energy and those kinds of things.
All right, so Judy, let's talk about the economic development side. How do you interface with producers, and what sort of problems do you help them through?
Sure. So I have a background primarily in field crop production and soil science, so I feel very at home here in Seneca County with our significant grain and soybean production amount. So I'm able to speak with them and learn what their concerns might be, and if it is a concern, I then pass it on to the regional team, the regional field crop team, and they're able to stay more up to date and understand what the latest technologies are for any problems producers might have. So from there, I also work on the economic development side, and having the teams available allows me to do some really unique type of activities. Primarily, they are helping right now to update the county's agriculture farmland protection plan, which will then guide the position I'm currently in, looking at opportunities for value-added products, marketing opportunities, and also thinking about the environment, how agriculture interfaces with the environment. And also this position provides opportunities to work with what I'll call niche-type activities. And the one that kind of comes to mind has been in the news fairly recently is the Amish agriculture project that actually is being spearheaded by a local entrepreneur businessman, Mark Lynn, and he has worked and connected with some of the Amish community in Ovid, and they've actually constructed and are successfully raising in basically a high tunnel, it's like a hoop house, shiitake mushrooms, and those are being marketed not only locally, but they're also going down into New York City where they're very popular. And the vision for that is to continue to bring more Amish families in. This is a good project for them in the wintertime because that's a slow time for them. And Mark is in the process of putting in a production line at his Finger Lakes Tea Company, which is still selling tea. So so from going from field crop production to shiitake mushrooms is quite a span, and that's, I'll say, one of the things I really enjoy about this job is that I do get a lot of opportunities to learn about a lot of different types of things related to agriculture.
Is there opportunity for more of those specialty type crops? Because I would assume that there's probably a higher markup and a higher profit percentage on shiitake mushrooms than growing 100 acres of corn.
There is, but eventually, like everything, you can reach saturation. And the shiitake mushrooms are much more labor intensive because it's all handwork compared to growing 100 acres of corn or soybeans. Really, one individual, basically part-time with not even the biggest and best machinery, can go ahead and get our crops, our field crops planted and harvested. But yes, it just takes someone's interest, in my opinion, their interest, their spirit of entrepreneurship to say, this is what I want to do, and then they come to Extension and say, can you help me? And as Ave said, we have a lot of resources out there, and not only within New York, but we can go outside of our state to the other land grant institutions to collect the resources that we need in order to help an idea come to fruition. So I don't know what the next new product will be. Hemp was hot for a while. It's kind of started to die down a little bit. Will shiitake mushrooms take the main stage that hemp did? Time will tell.
You talked earlier about farmland protection. What are the threats in Seneca County? I know in many parts of the country, development is the major threat. Is that a big threat here in Seneca County? And if not, what is?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It depends how you define development. A lot of people define development as the 50 or 100 tract home coming into 10 acres or whatever it is. In Seneca County, we don't have that yet. The threat that we're seeing is what's called in the industry, death by 1,000 cuts. You buy 5 acres, Ave buy 5 acres, I buy 5 acres, my neighbor buys 5 acres. All of a sudden, 20 acres are now gone out of production that would have been available for farming. So we do have that. We have the small subdivisions. In this plan, we're working with consultants. And one of the consultants has been able to map, I think from back in the 1950s, up through current time. And it's amazing to see, particularly around many of the villages in the county, how the village center has spread out, so it's sprawl. We don't see it because we drive by it every day, but this is happening throughout the Finger Lakes as well. As much as I love to have tourists come, I always tell friends that come to visit me, come as much as you want, leave your money, go home. I don't want you living here because you're going to want to buy that 5 acres and it's going to take more land out of production. So there are some programs in place, but certainly planning and helping local communities think about how they want their community to look in the future is the way to go. And then this plan is on a county level, so it provides some opportunities there.
You had a seminar recently on farmland succession. Is it difficult for older farmers to find those younger family members or someone else to take over?
We're actually, this was a 6-part series, and we're actually doing the 4th one tonight, and I'm instructing it. And it can be hard. It's a difficult conversation because many times the older generation doesn't want to admit that they're going to be that their career is coming to an end. And farming is not an easy occupation. And not all children want to come back and farm. Many of them will go off the farm and work and then say, oh, I really do want to farm. And that's the perfect situation, in my opinion, where they come back with some experience off the farm under their belt, and then perhaps that can make a smooth transition. Other times there are no children or the children just said, no, I'm not interested. And then if the older generation is interested in seeing the farm continued and not put into some type of housing, which is usually where it goes, then they will look for someone outside to come in. And usually it's either through an internship or a mentorship. There's some type of matching, and there's several programs in the state now that will match people who don't have a farm to go home to with a farm that is looking for a successor. But it's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. It can take years for this to happen, and I've worked with a few farms over the years where they thought they had the right person in, and after 3 years, that person wasn't the right match, and they left, and they had to start the process all over again. So again, we do recommend to farms that are in this situation to start early. Plus, you need to give the time for the person coming in to understand the farm, and the older generation needs to act as a mentor for the younger generation, the new owner, whoever it is. Time to learn and to grow, and sometimes that's even hard for farmers because, by gosh, this is the way I've always done it and we're not changing anything. Well, unfortunately, times change.
And another series you did was on the unique challenges faced by women farmers, and that's a growing group. Talk about those seminars and some of the issues women face in farming.
Sure. We're still working with a group of about 30 women. We're meeting Mondays and Thursday nights virtually. And that's been a positive because we've been able to bring this group of women together virtually that we may not have been able to bring together if they had to drive somewhere. I know last year we had a couple women from Seneca County that were thrilled to death that it was virtual because they didn't have to drive to Binghamton. Mm-hmm. You need a core group in order to start your discussion. So, yeah, women are increasing in number as farm owners, and agriculture is still perceived by many as a male-dominated profession. But you get a group of women together, and heaven forbid, they're a force to be reckoned with. And these women certainly are. So some of the challenges that they're looking at are, what are the various programs that are available? How do you talk to a lender? What are some of the management concerns if you have staff on your farm? How do you get staff to come and work for you? How do you compensate them? What are some of the safety concerns? Agriculture is still a potentially dangerous operation, and along with mining and forestry, agriculture is right up there. So what do you need to be aware of? How do you handle visitors that come to your farm? Many of these farms want to be open, want to be transparent, so that the consumer understands where their food's coming from and who their farmer is. Consumers today, especially after COVID, going back to COVID again, are very interested in knowing where their food's coming from, who's producing it, how it's being produced. And that's a good thing that people are interested in that. But we need to bring people, if people are comfortable, to the farm. And women tend to be more willing to open the barn doors, so to speak, than, say, men do. Male farmers tend not to want to share as much as women do. Typical in life.
And that leads into my next question for you, Ave, which is one of the missions of Cooperative Extension is interfacing with and educating the public. I've raved about the ag tours that you did. I attended 2 of those where you covered just a lot of different issues like runoff and keeping the water clean and explained why it's in farmers' best interest to do that as well as it is for consumers. So talk about that educational part, and are there any more of those tours planned, knock on wood, and COVID allowing?
Well, I'll have to ask Judy about that. Certainly, that is education is our thing. That is what we do. There's so much misinformation that is out there. There is so much clutter and noise that the great thing about information from Extension is that we are a hopefully trusted, reliable source. It's our information is vetted. It usually it's for the most part usually something that comes down from a university or another land grant. We if you notice, if you ever get on our website to look for information, we don't. All of our stuff pretty much comes from .edu or .gov, those kinds of sources, and so that is getting out that information to people, whether that is through workshops. Our nutrition program does amazing things with food preservation. I've got a group of participants right now from Seneca County that are going through Cornell Climate Stewards training, and so they will have information to be able to get out to the public, both in workshops, but also to work with town governments and village governments on those kinds of things. So our master gardeners, we have a hotline for that. What is this bug? Last week somebody brought in jumping worms that we were trying to deal with and figure out. That is the key thing that we do, and to both with staff, but also to train the public to become trainers, to become instructors.
And that leads into one other area of focus I want to get into, and that is climate, environment, recycling. And you've worked a lot with young people. You put together this Seneca Green Team. You've got the farm to school program. So now you have kids going home educating their parents about nutrition or about recycling.
Exactly. One of the first things we found when the county approached us to talk about to be responsible for recycling education in the county, what's the best avenue to get that out? And it pretty much was, if I tell my wife, hey, you need to really recycle that, it may or may not happen. But if my son came in and said, Mom, what are you doing? That could be recycled. That could be turned into cans forever. That's likely to happen. And so we formed the Seneca Green Team, which is Generating Recycling and Energy Education Now. We're big on acronyms, and so several years ago we had teams in each school district. It has its ups and downs. It depends on if you find that right person in the school district to help support it. We've got a great thing going with Miners Academy right now with Barb Reese, one of their teachers, and she has that group really going well. They designed actually our recycling, our reusable recycled bags that we've been giving out lately. We're designed. They're actually great bags. You can fit a lot of stuff in them. And so that group, it was great because that group came up with, well, this is what we want to do. That was actually their idea, and they came to us and we said, well, we've got money to do that. It's a great way to get the word out. They sat down, did an initial design, then they actually worked with the graphic designer Christy Brewer on our staff to say, oh, let's play around with that. So it was this great interchange and helping those kids learn more as well. And so we've been trying to get that message out, working with those students to really do more. There's also actually one of the climate stewards we'll be hopefully reviving our efforts in South Seneca because one of the climate stewards participants is one of those teachers, and she's starting to revive the Seneca Green group there.
Yeah, tell us more about that climate steward program and climate smart communities.
So the climate stewards program that we've been working on, it's a pilot program. I was lucky enough to be helping with the statewide group. We have about 60 participants from across the state, and it is let's see, we're at about a 12-week curriculum currently, and we're doing that virtually actually at the moment. So every Thursday night we meet for about 2 hours, groups from across the state, and it covers everything from basic climate science to what are mitigation strategies, what are adaptation strategies, what are the differences between those two things. How do you communicate with people about climate change? How do you work with broad communities, people that may not quite buy climate change, to people that are like, oh my gosh, we're not doing enough, to people that's like, yeah, this is really bad, but we've got to approach it in such a way that people just don't get turned off and give up. So that group is coming down towards the end of its training. We hope that after that we'll be tweaking it. We'll be able to offer it more across the state. The part of the point of those climate stewards was not just general education about climate change, but also the Climate Smart Communities program, which is a statewide program. There's a lot of money to be had for local communities to upgrade their buildings to be more energy efficient, to install electric charging stations in their communities, to figure out how do you best build your culverts and your drainage systems so that the next time you have a flash flood, it doesn't wipe out Lodi Point. And actually Lodi is a leading in the county in terms of putting together its team and really moving towards being a climate smart community. So
they saw the effects. They saw what happened when floods hit.
Exactly.
And said, okay, we got to change something.
Exactly.
And then also in the southern part of the county, you've got a terrific program for home energy efficiency, the Heat Smart FLX South program. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
So we'll have to make sure you get Erica in here, Erica Herman. So the Heat Smart South program actually covers all of the county. And it is talking about heat pumps, heat pump electric hot water, or heat pump hot water heaters, and both air conversion heat pumps and geothermal. But Erica Herman is our colleague who works out of Schuyler but covers Seneca for this program, and she can get you hooked up to energy audits for your home, no cost or low cost, and then she knows all of the programming in terms of, well, where are the rebates, where are the loans, where are the programs to help subsidize a move to a heat pump technology, which is her explanation is kind of like, well, you know how your refrigerator sits there and makes it cold inside. Well, the heat pump's kind of the same idea. It takes either the natural heat from the ground and then is able to heat your home or cool it during the summer, and the same with the air exchangers.
I know you got a lot of programs going on. Anything in particular in the next few days, or just send people to the website?
People can go to the website. The big thing is getting through the annual meeting. So that's what we're looking for right now.
All right, thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it. We've just scratched the surface of what Cooperative Extension does, and we'll have Hans Walter Peterson on to talk about grapes, and we'll get Mo Tidball in here to see what she's hunting and grilling up, and we'll have a lot of fun both on this program and on standalone podcast episodes. If you'd like to be on this program, have a story to tell, you can email me. It's ted@fingerlakes1.com. I'm on Twitter at FLXTed. F and T are capitalized, so don't go to that all caps guy. I can't vouch for him. And then I'll be back here on the Debrief podcast with Josh Durso tomorrow. Until then, this is Inside the FLX from FingerLakes1.com. I'm Ted Baker. Thanks for watching.